All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
What were you? What an awkward way to begin. Thank you. Nice to see everyone. I know. Just a little something I've thrown on for the end times. Thank you very much. It's an olive with a gray shirt. Yes, I like to be well dressed for the end of America. Yeah. It is great to have everybody here. Tony is part of everybody. He is,
thanks, Tony.
Remains our technical wizard. I was on the phone with him early today. It's the way I really love starting my day because the whole system melted down.
The camera's not working. Everything's broken.
Yeah,
what did you set up here?
The last thing I want to do is be studying and reading as I always do. Instead, I'd rather go into the reactor and try to, stop the bleeding, which is what I've been doing for most of the morning with Tony. So
thanks, Tony.
Anyway, and Kim is here, of course.
Kim, how are you?
Kim, who sent me pictures of her daughter competing and performing in an orchestral setup and also in a marching band thing. And I'm thinking, oh, God, I got to look at this thing, even though it's because it's a friend of mine's kid. And she was amazing. It was
crazy good, right?
Really good. Yeah, for sure. So I truly thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
because not only was she good, but the group, the orchestra, they were insanely good, and the marching band was insanely good. So she's got a fun activity that has ended up with some really cool, I just, as I say, I guess my expectations were low, but I was blown away.
Awesome. I was blown away too. I thought, I got to go sit through the youth symphony. And I mean, wow, they just blew my socks off. It was great.
Yeah, I could have, that youth symphony, I could have sat through the whole thing with total pleasure and with hopes that it went on longer. It was really great. Stan Pollock is first into the super chat. He is our favorite CPA. Stan Pollock, CPA, $10 super chat to say, KSFO, now this is a station in San Francisco. That's why it's SFO, you can imagine. KSFO is now announcing they are on 810. Does this mean the experiment didn't work? Maybe you will get your old job back. So for everybody who is just joining us, I won't spend but a quick second on this. KSFO and KGO are two radio stations in San Francisco. We came from KGO. It was a massive talk radio station with this great track record of success, a great legacy in the community. KSFO is sort of like its little sister, or it's a little station. And so it runs Hannity, and it runs Mark Levin. It runs the right-wing stuff, and it runs Armstrong and Getty, which is sort of like a more palatable right-wing kind of morning show. And we were center and center left, really, on KGO. So we went away, the station folded up, and they put sports gaming on, wall-to-wall sports gaming. They got rid of the call letters KGO. Now they've announced that they're going to take that right-wing little sister station and move it onto the big stick, as they say in radio.
I guess that's the new state media, huh?
Right. So
they're going to be assimilated across the country.
KGO will now be that right-wing talk, and they'll do a lot of that syndicated programming. It's the same station. They're just going to take KSFO and move it over to KGO. No, it's despicable. I understand what they're doing. It's the last gasp of trying to make money in San Francisco with these stations. Do you understand? They're all going down, all of them. Cumulus is going to go down, all of them. And they say, well, the FM, the FMs too, all of them. The water will rise to the Lido deck of the FM stations too, and they're all going under. And the reason doesn't have to do so much with how bad they are. It has to do with the business itself. And ad-supported media, legacy media, is now really facing a reckoning against the Spotifys, the Apple Podcasts of the world, the iHeart Radio podcast universe that is so successful. Streaming, essentially, is, and this kind of thing. I mean, not so much our show per se, but on YouTube and YouTube-related platforms, you've got audio media that's now competing with them. Yeah. So I'd look. These are the death throes of Cumulus Media in San Francisco. You're seeing it. I'm sure they're celebrating it. Oh, we're back on, et cetera. Yeah, that's the way I'd celebrate it too. But it's the end for legacy media, and it's the end for KGO, and it's the end for everything on KGO eventually. So they've already played one end, now they're playing the other end. You understand this one much cheaper because you don't have to pay anybody. Armstrong and Getty are already on the air. You've got Sean Hannity and all that other stuff that's just syndicated. You just throw it up and, you can sell that. And it's just much easier. I totally get it from a business standpoint, but, KGO is certainly not back. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
State of emergency will be declared by Donald Trump. He says that his plan for mass deportations of undocumented immigrants will involve a national emergency declaration and use of the military. We'll talk more about that. Brendan Carr, what's that?
Can you do that? Can you do that?
Yeah, you can.
I mean,
that's
that
the
legal?
problem.
You can take the military inside the United States and round people up like that?
You can do it if you declare a state of emergency first.
You're going to send the Marines to Texas? What are you going to do?
Well, I think it's a complete, it's a ham-fisted way to approach this thing that he wants to do. I don't think still that he's going to do it. I mean, I think he'll, in a very high-profile way, which is what he's doing now, he will announce roundups. There will be roundups, but nothing on the scale of millions and millions of people. There just isn't the infrastructure to do it. But there he is on his social network saying it's true. You see it true in with the exclamation points. Anyway, that's I think that's the big news of the morning, but I'd also suggest that there's some other big news related to Trump appointees and the overhauling of Medicaid. They're looking at food stamps, various tax legislation that they could put in place to overhaul all of these government programs. And in addition to taking an axe to these safety net programs, they may get rid of entire government agencies. In fact, before I bring Cenk on, Cenk Uygur is going to join us in just a minute. By the way, Cenk was one of the guys who said, I remember actually watching him on TYT, and he said, brace for impact. I think Trump is going to win this thing. This is prior to the election. So while we were all, getting high on our own supply of, the hopium. Oh, it looks good. Look at this new Iowa poll. By the way, you saw the Iowa pollster who was completely wrong. She had Kamala Harris up 4 points. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris loses Iowa by 16 points. Yeah. Guess where she is? Retired. She just announced her retirement. So nothing like going out on a high. Wow. But can we just quickly run the Vivek thing? Run the Vivek thing, because this is him talking about what will happen in a Trump administration.
Are you expecting to close down entire agencies, like President Trump has talked about the Department of Education, for example? Are you going to be closing down departments?
We expect mass reductions. We expect certain agencies to be deleted outright. We expect mass reductions in force in areas of the federal government that are bloated. We expect massive cuts among federal contractors and others who are overbilling the federal government. So yes, we expect all of the above. And I think people will be surprised by, how quickly we're able to move with some of those changes, given the legal backdrop the Supreme Court has given us.
Are you expecting?
I don't know that the legal backdrop actually is there. The Supreme Court hasn't necessarily given you that legal backdrop, but I'm sure they're going to try to do it. And by the way,
legal backdrop, does he mean the immunity thing?
Yeah, the immunity thing. And the immunity thing only goes so far. I mean, you can't eliminate entire government agencies just based on this immunity thing. I get it. They're flying that flag of immunity and trying to do a lot, but I think they're shooting first and asking questions later, which is a very Trumpian thing to do. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
He's the founder of TYT, which is the largest online news network in the world. He gives you such great takes on things, and I think he is fair in calling balls and strikes on this election. As I say, he was fairly worried, and then at the last moment, prior to Election Day, I remember seeing an offering from Cenk. I believe it was just like when he does a lot of these one-on-one sort of video drops in which he said, hey, I'm looking at the polling and brace for impact. I think Trump is going to win this thing, which at the time was really not what the momentum of Kamala Harris was predicting. You know, the media and the hopium associated with the Kamala Harris move was saying something else. Anyway, without any further delay, although that was a very substantial delay. How about it for Cenk? Cenk Uygur. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Cenk, before I get into what's happening now, I do want to quickly spend a quick second. I know the postmortems are being done and the cycle of news is so quick that we're now moving on to like the Trump administration before we've even got all the votes counted. But can you just give me your take on what happened with this election? And by the way, give me at least a nod to whether or not you feel everything was legit and on the up and up.
Yeah, definitely legit. I mean, look, the Republicans always do cheating around the edges, and it's super frustrating getting rid of voter rolls in Democratic areas, less voting machines in Democratic areas, a little bit of voter intimidation around the edges, etc. And what Elon Musk did in that, giving away the lottery of $1 million a day is basically paying people to register and eventually vote. And he had a litmus test so that it basically was just Republicans. So in a normal, sane world, that's illegal and there would be consequences. But that ship has sailed. There are no consequences left ever for anyone in the Trump administration, and certainly for Trump, and certainly for Elon. But those did not affect the outcome of the election. They didn't even come close to affecting the outcome of the election. We lost the swing states pretty significantly. Look, these days, pretty significantly means like 1.5 points to 5 points. It's not like, like the Republicans painted as like it was some sort of 48 state mandate. It wasn't, right? They're so ecstatic that they won the popular vote for the first time in 20 years, which tells you maybe not the majority party, maybe not, right? Like it's damning with faint praise. But at the same time, now to get to the core of your question, Mark, so what did go wrong and why did we lose? Because if we're not honest about it and we don't get it right in our analysis here, we're going to make the same mistake again and again. And next time we might lose to a smart fascist. And then, oh boy, batten down the hatches. And that one goes beyond brace for impact. Well, and we'll see what kind of damage Trump does, right? But in my opinion, Mark, there's three parts of the Democratic Party. What I would call the establishment Democrats. There's a lot of good folks in there who watch Morning Joe and The View and believe all the things that are said on cable news. They don't mean any harm. They're wonderful people. Unfortunately, the leaders of that group are some of the most damaging people in the Democratic Party, the ones that take all the donor money, do everything the donors want, and then tell you, hey, this is all we could do. There was nothing we could do. There was nothing we could do crowd. So that's the establishment Democrats. Now, the other camp is just usually referred to as progressives. But that's a misnomer. That camp is divided into two very different branches, right? And the good part of that branch gets thrown in with the bad part and smeared with the bad part, I think often on purpose. So there's among progressives, there's what people are now calling the identitarian left, the folks who do identity politics, the ones that trans ad that they ran at the end, considered one of the most successful political ads in history. And Mark, you might remember me getting into a lot of fights with leftists, the identitarian left, et cetera, folks, when I said, don't go that far. The American people are not going to like it, right? We have to protect trans rights. But that doesn't mean that they have the right to play in professional leagues. That doesn't mean that they have the right to free surgery, et cetera, right? If you go that far, it'll cost us, but nobody listened. Now, the last wing is the wing that I'm in, and you could say it's convenient, but the facts do bear it out. And that's what I've been screaming at the top of my head. Please go in that direction, because when you go in the other two directions, it's wall-to-wall losses. So the last part is the populist left. And those are the things that Bernie 2016 more than Bernie 2020. And that's when he was focusing on higher minimum wage, higher wages for all Americans, the average American, universal health care, lower drug prices, paid family leave. All of those proposals are the exact opposite of the other end of the progressive left. The progressive left, the identity politics folks, have the least popular proposals among the entire left-wing spectrum, but the populist left has the most popular. All of those economic policies poll at 2/3 or higher. So that's the direction we have to go.
So if, let's just take it as a hypothetical, Kamala Harris, had come out and been more vocal about these issues to which you've referred, let's say, paid family leave and health care, single pay or whatever however you want to frame it. I do think the framing is quite important. And so to the framing, the Republicans then go, see, radical left want to spend us into oblivion, et cetera. They are so very effective at the framing. I'm not suggesting that you necessarily change your positions because you're worried about how they're going to frame it, but I am saying that you're in a messaging game. And clearly the messaging in this last election was abysmal on the part of Democrats.
Yeah, so Mark, I think that those are two slightly different issues. And so, and this is the most important part. It's actually not a hypothetical. It actually all happened within this campaign. So when Kamala Harris first came out, she actually had the economically populist positions that we loved. And the good news about us is we're over the top honest and we're on tape. So you can go back to, like, if anybody's skeptical about it, go back to when Kamala Harris first wins enough delegates to be the candidate, and she goes and proposes going after price gouging, which affects average Americans, lower your prices, go after corporate power to do it, and housing prices, go after corporate power, hold them in check, and make sure your housing prices are reasonable and affordable. And then she names Tim Walz. You watch me and Anna on the Young Turks going, yes, that's the correct strategy. I'm on tape saying brilliant strategy. And what happened? Joe Biden handed her a giant deficit in the polling, anywhere from 2 to 8 points behind in one poll nationally. That's a hole it seemed like you could almost not possibly climb out of in that short period of time. Boom, she skyrockets. Now, partly because she's a new candidate and people were sick of Biden and Trump, but then she has these super popular policies. And Mark, what you said was going to happen did happen. And it was a beautiful trap that I thought they were laying for them. I thought they knew what they were doing. I thought maybe it's David Plouffe and he's, a brilliant strategist from the Obama years, et cetera, because the Republicans fell right into it. They were like, oh, I can't believe she's going after corporate America. You can't try to control the prices. That'll hurt corporations. I'm like, yes. And she got up to a 7-point lead nationally. And I said on the show that day, I wish the election were today because she would win today. But I don't know if she's going to keep it up. And then Tony West, her dumbass brother-in-law, convinced her, he's like a corporate legal guy at Uber, and he convinced her, no, go say how much you love corporations. So she put out a letter saying 90 corporate CEOs are on my side. She sent Mark Cuban all over cable news to say, oh, she's not going to do the price gouging thing. Don't worry about that. No, she loves corporate CEOs. And I'm like ripping my hair out. Don't stop. And hey, she loves Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney. They poll at 13%. Why would you wrap your arms around someone who polls at 13%? This is elementary politics. The only reason they don't understand it, Mark, or they don't execute it, is because they're obsessed with the donors. What do the donors want? But knucklehead, at some point, you got to get the voters. Otherwise, you lose, just like what happened here.
But, Cenk, it's funny. I am increasingly of the mind that the issues, much as we talk about them, and I think certain issues do cut through, we've just mentioned a few that do, people have an impression, people vote with their gut. You know this. I mean, we've seen it in our lifetime with George Bush. He's the kind of guy I could have a beer with, all that crap you'd hear. There is an aspect to a candidate, and there's some aspect to this guy, Trump. Obviously, he's a BS artist, right? And he just spins and talks and says outrageous things, but he's a little bit entertaining. It's kind of a show. And I wonder at just some point if, particularly these last few election cycles, I mean, we have just these one-term presidents. I wonder if the electorate just isn't in a disposition of, throw this guy out. Let's get a new change.
So that's a big part of it too. But you can tell the policies make a difference because they literally made a difference in this election. You saw her build a huge lead with the right policies, and then lose that lead when she abandoned those policies. So, but also messaging, we'll get back to that in a second. But to your point here, which is kind of halfway about messaging, the personality of the candidate themselves, right? So you're totally right, super relevant. But it relates back to what I was saying, Mark. Why do we have such robotic talking point machines on our side? And some are bad at it, and I think Kamala Harris is bad at it. Every answer seemed like a talking point. I'm sorry if it breaks your heart, but we lost the election because she sounded robotic. She didn't sound like an authentic person. She didn't go on Rogan because Rogan has authentic conversations. Yeah, they might be frustrating. They might be framed in a little bit right-wing position. But Mark, imagine me saying, no, I won't go on Rogan because I'm afraid he'll frame things wrongly. I would never say that because I'd go on there and then frame it right myself. I'd fight back. I'd make the best case we can for our side. She didn't want to make that case. She's one of the ones that are not as good at it. But I'm begging you guys, you got to trust me on this. If you pick someone who's good at it, like Pete Buttigieg, it's not going to make a difference. That's the wrong path, because Buttigieg is going to go, oh, these corporate talking robots I am a better version of it. I am a new and improved corporate robot. The bottom line is, brother, are you going to do the child tax credit or aren't you? And are you going to talk like a normal human being or aren't you? They're so rehearsed. It's just that Pete Buttigieg is a better actor than Kamala Harris is, right? Gavin Newsom is a better actor than Kamala Harris is. Trump is a lunatic oftentimes and is unhinged, but in his unhingedness, he accidentally comes across as authentic. He is authentically himself, which is problematic, right? But at least it's authentic. Even his lies. I mean, that's the great irony, right? He lies and lies and lies, but then he appears to be authentic because he's saying the lies in a way that is authentic. He looks like a real person. And I know that drives some people on our side crazy, but it's the reality. When they saw him at McDonald's, that was an amazing photo op. And our side tut-tutted and, oh, no, that's not right and that's not fair. But she couldn't handle that kind of photo op. What did the photo op she do? She went on Oprah, so surrounded herself with celebrities. But your problem is that you look like the elites. And when you surround yourself with celebrities, you buttress that view of yourself, which is negative, but they don't even realize that.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, after the fact, we say that, Cenk, but celebrity endorsements matter. That's the reason celebrities are asked to endorse products and other things. So on some level, you're right. You can, again, look back in hindsight and go, yeah, it just seems like it's a bunch of liberal elites at a Springsteen concert. But you think it's not effective.
So, no, it's mixed. So you're half right, Mark. So in my opinion. So, look, when Taylor Swift comes to endorse you, the correct answer is not no. It's yes. God, thank you. Love it. And she helped register a lot of people. Fantastic, right? Bruce Springsteen, beloved by a lot of people. Correct answer is yes, thank you. I'd love to have your endorsement. But do not surround yourself with them, right? So on Oprah, she's like Oprah and Meryl Streep and Julia Roberts and this and the other thing. And she's constantly with, Beyonce and Queen Latifah. I mean, Joy Reid is saying she ran a flawless campaign. First of all, how flawless could it be if she lost?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then secondly, she says she even got Queen Latifah's endorsement, and that's so hard. No one cares. No one cares about Queen Latifah's endorsement.
I didn't hear that. That's pretty funny.
Okay. So whereas what the Republicans did, and again, all of these we said at the time, when she did the Oprah one, we were on the Young Turks going, no. You look too elitist. Backpedal, get out of there, right? And at the RNC, we're sitting there going, man, Wiles, his campaign manager, now his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, running a brilliant convention. Why? An average person after average person, firefighter, accountant, dentist, dog walker. It was ordinary person extraordinary. And then you go to the DNC, celebrity after celebrity after celebrity. It's sending off the wrong message. There aren't that many celebrities or elites in the world. There are way more average folks. We've got
that's a fascinating take. It's because I think if you look at the two conventions, and we'll move on from this, but I thought that the DNC was a fairly strong offering, and one of the reasons that it was strong was because they'd placed strategically various people to boost tune-in, I'm sure. And you're right. Gosh, I don't. You're also skipping over Hulk Hogan and the kind of clown show that was the R. It was very machismo.
I know, but people love Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
I love Hulk Hogan.
No, of course he's a lovable kind of cartoon character. I get it.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Politics, baby.
I don't. Sure. I don't know. I'd have to go. I barely remember the conventions. I've lost them in my tears over the results of the election. Let me just quickly move on to where we are now, and then I'll let you go because I appreciate you spending a couple of minutes with us. We're in a situation where you've really got a flame-throwing president who has promised to do a lot of things, close down government agencies, deport millions of illegal migrants. Speak to me about what will really happen. How much of this can he really put into action?
Yeah, so there's only one potential break in the car or silver lining, which is that Donald Trump likes to be popular. And that's the one thing I'm hoping prevents him from doing maniacal things. Don't get me wrong, that hope is limited. Okay. I mean, somewhere between 5 to 25%. I wouldn't bet money on it. Unless you give me good odds. But 75% at least, he will do terrible things and will not turn around. Okay. So there's in the first time around, the reason why it was a disaster, but a mitigated disaster was there was the establishment guys in the building and they provided a check on Trump. So whenever he suggested something crazy, like, hey, should we nuke a hurricane? They're like, oh, Mr. President, that's probably not the best idea. It would spread radiation across the entire eastern seaboard and do more damage than anything any enemy of ours can do, right? So they tackle him when he has terrible ideas. This time, I'm afraid that Matt Gaetz and Kash Patel and Pete Hegseth, et cetera, are going to be like, ha, what a brilliant idea, Mr. President. Well, sure. You know what? Let's send our nuclear submarine to attack the hurricane. Right. So, but he does have a team of rivals, and it's more complicated than we're giving it credit for. And what I mean by that is there's an establishment wing that he brought in, Marco Rubio, Stefanik, Mike Waltz, and in some ways Mike Huckabee. And they are opposed to some of the other guys like Gates, et cetera, that are less interventionist, more anti-war. So that pro-war and anti-war side are going to clash inside the Trump administration. So look, and some of the anti-war guys are the more unhinged guys. So it's super complicated. I love their anti-war, anti-corruption stance. I hate the rest of their unhinged, devotion to Donald Trump. Whereas the establishment guys, maybe they're checking the car and the brakes in the car. On the other hand, I hate their pro-war neocon agenda. So it's going to be a hot mess. And the thing that we've got to hope wins over is when he starts doing something disastrous, like rounding up all undocumented immigrants, 12, 13 million, however many million people, right? That both the populist right goes, like the Rogan, the bros, right? The bros go, it's a bit much. It's a bit much. Okay. Like, let's reel it back in. And his popularity goes down and his poll ratings go down. And he goes, oh, they liked it when I was deporting the criminals. But it turns out when I'm deporting their friend that runs the local diner that happens to be undocumented, they didn't like that. Okay, I'm going to retrench. I'm going to rethink it, right? That's your best hope.
Yeah, I mean, I think as a practical matter, the economy will begin to crater, and you'll start to sort of see so many businesses and so many industries turned on their side. I mean, California will be decimated by removing all of these migrant workers who essentially are feeding that breadbasket that the rest of the nation eats from. So I know we're over our time. Love spending time with you. Hope you'll visit again. Check out TYT. Just awesome. I've been so impressed by the way you've kept it going for so long, and it's only getting better. Congratulations, my friend. Cenk Uygur, everybody. Yeah, Cenk Uygur. See you, Cenk.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Stay at home and get baked.
Right on, everybody. Glad you could make it on a Monday. So much to do. We touched on some of the things that have made news as dawn breaks in Washington and on the East Coast. Donald Trump saying that he plans for mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. Of course, he said that on the stump. And those plans will involve a national emergency declaration and the use of the military. The Uprights hits us with a super chat. Let this period in time be known as the idiot rebellion of 2024. So let it be written, so let it be done. The idiot rebellion, everyone. Yes, I was there for it. Wow. Thank you for the super chat. No Contendo in the super chat says Trump equals the ultimate warrior, coked up and rambling, screaming, but sold seats. MAGA rather be entertained than educated. Vince was a union buster and a Hulk was the rat. That is true, actually. What No Contendo is referring to is the mutterings and primordial ooze of a union that was coming up in the WWE was quashed and squashed by Vince McMahon, but it was Hulk Hogan who told Vince that there were conversations that were, actually achieving some momentum in that area. So that's a fascinating point. I mean, I think it's a bad time for unions in America, but and any kind of organized labor effort might be hard to pull off under sort of the withering gaze of this new administration. Hey, smash the like button if you will. It helps us in the world of YouTube. It's a way to without it costing you anything. This should be buttoned, I think, is really the way this should look, yes. For Gary Dietrich, I like to try to be buttoned up and looking my best. It helps us in the world of YouTube. All right, so without any further delay, got a lot still to get to, and we will get to it, but I want to welcome in...
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to welcome in a guy who is a legend in the world of a KGO and across the CBS television stations as a political analyst, also on iHeartRadio. He joins us on Mondays. Gary Dietrich, everybody. Gary. Well, we're still...
Go ahead.
Hello. We're still, doing our thing where we're looking over the election and what went wrong. We're doing a little bit of that. I'm seeing and read so much about Democrats need to concentrate on kitchen table issues. And I'll tell you, I think this election was not as issue-oriented, but I was just going back and forth with Cenk about that. I mean, I think you could get a few issues through, but they really dined out on the trans thing, on these sort of cultural wedge issues. They really dined out on that. And, of course, on illegal immigration. And I don't know that you could have stemmed that tide with a lot of kitchen table talk, but maybe you could have.
Mark, first off, a housekeeping detail. I want you, your staff, and your people who are the esteemed listening audience to know, yes, a technical improvement for Gary Dietrich's microphone is in the works. All right,
it's in the works. It's true. Good. I love it. I love it. Thank you.
Two quick things on that. First, that was attempted this morning. Laptops, plug-in mics, all this stuff. Look, I'm a guy in front of the camera and the microphone, not on the technical side. So I'm going to have to get Tony's help with that. We'll do that in the next week.
Tony will help you, and I feel you on that. I was just saying this morning I had the same problem. The camera kicked out. I'm thinking, this isn't what I do, man. I don't know how to hook up a camera or a mic. So, but I appreciate you going after it since you're a regular here. We'll upgrade your audio. Okay, go ahead.
So 4 issues. Okay, let's start with issues, all right? I think the key, Mark, I wouldn't characterize it as, and I think most observers in both parties now have kind of acknowledged this. It wasn't so much non-issue as it was which issues. And I think that was the challenge, and the Harris people knew this going in. How do we make sure that on the issues that kept polling month after month after month for the last year of the economy / inflation, and then immigration number 2, and of course we've talked about this, certainly abortion was in there, probably number 3 or 4. Democracy, future of the country, yes, that was in that same sort of B drawer. But the challenge for the Harris people was in a sitting administration where people said, almost 2/3 of the country said the country's headed in the wrong direction. How do you get traction on the top 2 issues? And that was the challenge for first Biden, even more so than Harris, and then the Harris campaign. There's just no doubt about that. You're even hearing a lot of postmortems now, Mark, which is interesting, out of blue states like New York and New Jersey, which I got to tell you, the numbers that have now come out about those two states are absolutely incredible. Biden won New York by 23 points. Harris carried it by 5. Biden won New Jersey by 15 points. Harris carried it by 5. I mean, there was a systemic problem in the campaign now, and some of it was avoidable, some of it probably not avoidable.
Yeah, this is really interesting. You're right. And that's kind of when we look at the questions surrounding the elections that we still get. And, was there the external hand of an Elon Musk that manipulated results or something? I look at those states to which you've referred, and I see, those states were never really in play for Donald Trump, and yet they also showed sort of commensurate increases in votes for him. So I think that can be a little bit of a litmus test for how things worked out for the rest of the country in terms of the legitimacy of the vote. So I wonder about this guy who, I'm sure they feel it. We're just saying with Cenk, they're sort of feeling, oh, we've got a mandate. Not really. It's a pretty thin mandate if you've got any kind of mandate. You're again, ecstatic about winning the popular vote, but apart from that, everything is really tight, and even that popular vote is super tight. But they are really taking a wrecking ball to government. This is you'd have to concede here, Gary Dietrich, this is a radical administration by any yardstick, should they institute even half of what they're talking about.
Well, I think what you have so far is a mixed bag. A Marco Rubio would not be considered by most, including Democratic senators, who've pretty much given him the nod, saying, that's okay, we're going to confirm Marco, no problem. He would be considered certainly a hardliner when it comes to things like China and Russia. He's made that clear. But he would be considered, a fairly establishment kind of guy when it comes to most foreign policy issues. Now, so you put that in one pile, okay? The Rubio kind of appointment.
That's a very, very small pile. Go ahead.
So you put that in that pile. Well, we'll see where the rest of the folks come out or not.
Okay, go ahead.
But then you get, the obvious. Now you get into the Gates pile, right? You get into that pile, and that's where things get interesting, and some people would say dangerous. And I think right now, what's really interesting to me, Mark, is that you're already hearing a lot of chatter out of Washington saying, look, the Gates nomination is not going to sail through a confirmation process, not only for the Democrats, but even for Republicans. And John Thune, the new head of the Republicans in the Senate, he's no moron. He's been at this game a long time, and he's been, McConnell's right-hand man. He knows what he's facing. He's only got right now a couple seat majority. You were kind of alluding to that, Mark. It's going to be 53, 47, wherever it ends up, it's going to be tough to get some of these more controversial nominations through. And my thing, Mark, is I just wonder the Trump team themselves. When the confirmation of a Gates starts and we have a Clarence Thomas type vetting of all these very, very personal accusations, you know what I mean? I just wonder how far the Trump team is willing to go out on a limb for a Gates. If a confirmation process drags on for a week, 2 weeks, and you've got people up there making all kind of salacious accusations, some of them may be documented, some of them may not, but it doesn't matter, because the bottom line is going to be, I think there's going to be a short leash on some of these nominees. I think Trump and his people are going to say, look, I just don't have time for this. You're fired. I'm bringing my number 2 choice. Who might, some people are now saying, Mark, maybe those were the number 1 choices. Throw the red meat out first and then back it off a couple of notches and get somebody through.
Yeah, that's the 3D chess of it, that these are sort of to distract you, and so you'll breathe a sigh of relief when the real bad kid shows up and does the bidding of Trump. It's interesting to me too, Gary, and this is something that you probably knew and I didn't really realize it, but they don't have to vet these cabinet appointments. There is a custom of vetting them. But by law, I don't see anything to actually suggest they have to be vetted. And Trump is saying he wants to bypass the vetting process. He doesn't want background checks done on any of his appointments.
Yeah, he wants the so-called recess appointments where he wants the Senate to basically sign off on Trump's appointments without having not only not any vetting, but no hearings. Just, okay, rubber stamp, boom, you're in. And that has happened. Many administrations, by the way, have done that, recess appointments, not wholesale, as Trump is asking for, but basically what they're considered as interim appointments. And then you're supposed to have a full vetting and a full confirmation process down the road somewhere. But this has happened more recently with, for example, Biden's Health and Human Services Secretary, from California, Sue. So there's been this is not uncommon, but it is something that people are saying, wait, you can't have your whole cabinet come in like that, right? So I think the challenge is going to be, a vetting and a confirmation process for Rubio. How can you hold one and not the other? I think that's going to be the challenge, right? It's kind of either you got to go one way or not the other. And right now, I will tell you, right now on the Republican side in the Senate, there is a large voice saying, look, we are going to have a confirmation process, okay? If you think we're just going to rubber stamp all this, it's not going to happen. So we'll see who blinks first on this deal. But I would not be surprised at all. I wouldn't be surprised if over the next few weeks, some of these nominees who are really in trouble aren't even withdrawn and other names put forward. That's not uncommon either.
Yeah, that's you're right. I mean, this is not unprecedented to have people who become such lightning rods for controversy that you sort of have to flush them. It's funny when I take the sort of the jetliner view of these appointments and just of Trump's disposition toward government generally. I see Trump as someone who views government as a pain in the ass. Government's been, this vexing him since he had anything to do with it, dragging him to court. Regulators, the IRS, the FBI, these are all agencies. All of them are in these government buildings and part of government that he wants nothing to do with. And so in choosing people who are really looking as though they're there to dismantle these agencies, it sort of serves his purpose of getting rid of these agencies that he despises or that he regards as threats to his power. Again, that's a jetliner view of it. But if you look at these appointments beyond Gates and Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, I mean, you can just see, to me anyway, the absurdity of these appointments. But also, if you look at his appointment at EPA, this is a guy who wants to dismantle EPA. You see, and he tried it the first time with appointments, a lot of coal lobbyists and energy lobbyists, et cetera, handling agencies from the interior to EPA. But this time around, he seems more determined to get these people through and to actually dismantle this regulatory agency of government, like the EPA, like even the Justice Department.
Well, I think there's some important caveats for people to keep in mind, who are really concerned about this. And I understand some of their concerns. I really do. I think, there has to be some continuity to government. I mean, either you can't have no government or all government. I mean, and the thing about it is, Mark, what I want to remind people of, there are some people would call them safeguards built into the process. Some of these mandates, and by that I mean imprimatur, some of these tasks given these departments are legislatively generated. They're not regulatory. They're not just the executive powers. So you can only do so much to dismantle some of this stuff, right? I mean, some of these are laws that would have to be actually changed in order to do that. So it's not as simple as coming in with a dry board eraser and just wiping the slate clean. I think it's important for people to understand that. That's number one. Number two, like it or not, you go back to Max Weber and my sociology training at the esteemed University of California in Santa Barbara. Bureaucracies have a life of their own. They are not easily dismantled. There are a lot of channels. Even for example, Gavin Newsom going back last week and saying he wanted some waivers for certain things, both environmental and on healthcare and some things like that. If those waivers are granted during the Biden term in the last 2 months, most experts in Washington say that could take a year and a half to reverse those waivers, even by executive order on day one. So I think it's just important for people to understand that it's not as simple as you sign a couple papers on January 21st and this stuff all vaporizes.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because we started the show with the Vivek stuff about how he's going to delete entire government agencies. And I'm thinking, dude, you really just got to town an hour ago, because you just can't do that. But more on that, as obviously these and by the way, Vivek and Musk, they occupy a non-existent, just created arm of government. I don't know that it is an arm of government, and I don't know that it has any power. Now, maybe Trump could do some things with his executive powers, but anyway, that for another time. I'm going to backburner it now just to ask you about something that I think Trump could do. The president could, once he is in power, Donald Trump, under the plan to deport many undocumented immigrants, he could declare a national emergency. And at that point, he now does have use of the American military and a lot of the other authorities associated with law enforcement, even on the state level. I wonder if you could speak to, because he's saying today that that's what he wants to do. He's saying, it's true, that's what I'm doing. Now, again, I have always said, and then I'll shut up and let you talk, but I've always said that he likes to advertise this stuff. And there may be some high profile and really heartbreaking aspects of removing a bunch of undocumented immigrants. But I don't think he is really going to be able to launch anything on the scale of what he has advertised, which is, millions and millions and millions of undocumented workers and immigrants deported. Nonetheless, he could actually try to do it by this declaration of an emergency. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, I think you're onto something really important too, and that is the nature of Donald Trump and his proclamations themselves. There's a lot of Republicans, even in Congress, and some that even agree with him to a large degree, who are quietly saying, look, Donald, remember, we're going to have a border wall. Mexico's going to pay for it. Well, Mexico didn't pay for it, and we have some border wall. And I do think that border wall construction is going to be reconstituted. I don't think there's any question about that. But remember, that's just one example of how a lot of this stuff gets oversold in campaign mode, and then you get into creation mode, and it's not as feasible. I do think there's absolutely no doubt that you're going to be seeing stepped up immigration enforcement. There's no question about that. I think wisely, what you're really hearing from some of the people involved, they're laying out sort of what the steps of this process are going to be. And I think they're very wise at this juncture in the way they're approaching it, which is we are going to first and foremost target known criminals who have come to this country, undocumented. So they're taking sort of categories, if you'd say, Mark. The notion that you're going to, deport, just pick a number, okay? Say 10 million for whatever the number people want to say. You're going to, actualize the National Guard, maybe the Army. You're going to march 10 million people across the border. That is just not realistic, and nobody in Washington believes it is.
No Contendo says this for Gary Dietrich. Question, Elon is threatening to primary senators. Is that legal? So Elon is threatening to primary senators who won't go along with the recess appointments, who are giving the Trump administration any static. Is that legal to announce that?
Well, yeah, you can certainly. There's no reason not to announce it. I mean, I can announce, hey, I'm taking on Gavin Newsom in 2032, and I'm going to primary him. I mean, anybody, you can do that, Mark. You can put your name out there right now. But here's the deal. That's just political talk, okay? The reality is, and here's going to be the problem for Musk. This is really interesting when you look at the next cycle in 26 and in 28. Part of the challenge for Democrats is a lot of the Republicans, there's going to be more Republican seats up next time around in the midterms than there were this time. The challenge is most of those are very safe Republican seats. So to challenge a guy or a gal in their deep red state, even if you're Elon Musk and you want to launch this person on a space platform to Mars and get him out of the campaign, that was a joke, Mark. You can't send Senator Cornyn to Mars, at least to my knowledge, to get him out of the campaign. But the point is this: it's going to be hard for Musk to do. It's going to be hard enough for the Democrats who want to retake control of the Senate. They're going to have some challenges in the Senate in the next two cycles because there's not enough right now, as we speak today. There's not enough swing seats out there in purple states to retake control. They're going to have to work hard to dig deep into one or two of these red states to dislodge somebody. So the idea that Musk can do this unilaterally, that's a pipe dream.
Yeah, I think you have a lot of these neophytes who are into Washington now with these proclamations and declarations, and we're going to go after you, and you better play along, otherwise we're going to primary you, and they don't really know what they're talking about. I'd suggest Elon Musk is one of those
Mark,
people. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Here's a good example closer to home for those in California. When Arnold Schwarzenegger was elected, remember him walking around stages with a broom in his hand, and he was going to clean everything out, and we'll sack better. He got up here to the state capitol, and remember, launched a initiative campaign that was going to take on state unions and a whole bunch of other things. They had 3 or 4 ballot measures that went absolutely down in flames. A good friend of mine was his communications director at the time. He even admitted, listen, Arnold had no idea what he was talking about, got up here, learned the hard way. To your point, neophytes, Mark, you can talk a good game, but when you start getting into the nitty-gritty of elections, it's a lot tougher.
Yeah, Karen says Musk has the money and now apparently the power to take control of what he wants to. He's working on it. Yeah, he's working on it. But to Gary's point, there are, unless you know where the bodies are buried, and it takes a long time, decades in Washington, to know really how stuff gets done, you just can't come in as a rich guy. And I understand you could argue he bought a president or bought a presidency or helped, but Washington still operates in its own way. So political roadblocks may slow Trump and Musk down as well. Speak to me a little bit about what's happening in California, would you? I mean, at the end of this election, what did you take away from propositions that passed? What critical races went down now that the votes have been tallied sufficiently that we know?
Yeah, well, a couple of generalities and then a couple of specifics. First off, Trump did better in California as he did nationwide, okay, than he did in 2020. That's important. But I think the reality of it is, California is still deep blue. I mean, and that's going to really play in the next couple of cycles. How is it? Well, because Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who is heralded as kind of the next coming thing in the Democratic Party, they lost Pennsylvania. That is the Democrats. They also lost their U.S. Senate seat with Casey. And so Shapiro, a little of the shine has been taken off, I think, Josh Shapiro, because he couldn't hold, and of course he wasn't solely responsible for that in any way. But there's a sense in which, hey, Josh, you couldn't deliver your state and you couldn't keep our Democratic U.S. Senator. Why am I saying that? Because what this election did do, in a general sense, was elevate Gavin Newsom's position even further as a major potential spokesperson, one of the top tier people for Democrats, which they are going to need. I mean, the Democratic Party is in a rebuilding phase, both in terms of leadership and in terms of policy emphasis. So those are some generalities. Specifically, Latinos in California, they followed the national trend. They voted much more Republican than they have in the past. That is a major concern for the Democratic Party. I don't care whether it's James Carville or whoever else you want to throw out there who's a constant voice on these kind of things, beating these drums. That's going to have to be addressed. That Latino vote, people have realized in the Democratic Party, is not homogeneous. They're now making a differentiation between Latinos who are, as they call them, native born. In other words, those are trending more towards Trump than those who are more recent immigrants who might have been, as they say, foreign born. And then one other thing, the big proposition that everybody's looking at is the 70% of Californians that voted for criminal justice reform in Prop 36 that moved the needle actually back about a decade to much tougher sentencing, as you know, Mark, on things like smash and grabs, thefts up to $950, fentanyl dealing. I mean, California said, no way, we don't like the new structure. We are going back to what we had before. And there's a lot of folks wondering, including me, whether this is not a Prop 13 kind of moment that, where California is going to say, look, we did it with property taxes. We're doing it now with crime. The rest of the country, this liberal, this progressive stuff on crime ain't working. You may want to do like we're doing and move the needle back.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always say I'm a law and order lib. I've got no patience for the kind of looseness with which we've treated a lot of the things that are a blight on our cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, etc. And I think that clearly it's true. Just look at the vote. I mean, a lot of people share that view. And still, we can be the libs that we are when it comes to some other issues, safety net issues, et cetera. And when I say we, I'm talking about me, not you, necessarily. I don't know where you stand. You're a good political agnostic, I think, on this stuff. Finally, as things unfold here, it seems as though Trump has seized headlines. He's sort of acting as though he's already president. He's making these proclamations. He's got very controversial appointments ready to go. I mean, Hegseth, now the stuff about Hegseth paying people off, paying this one woman off, I should be specific about that, to stay quiet about a sexual encounter. Tulsi Gabbard, who has questioned the intelligence committee. She's now intelligence community. Now she's going to run the intelligence community. I mean, you have these bizarro choices. The Project 2025 guy, a guy who wrote a chunk of the 2025 project's take on the FCC. He's going to run the FCC. Okay, that's Trump's appointment to the FCC, should it be confirmed. So you see the hand of 2025 and all this. My overall question is how, as an observer, and as someone who lives in this country and will be subject to this new administration, do we take all of this? Because I can't stay in panic mode every day.
Well, that's interesting that you would say that, because that is a lot of what people are saying. Okay, try this on for size. I mean, it came out this morning, right? And because it was on their program, Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski went to Mar-a-Lago last week, met with Trump personally. They said for the first time in 7 years, first time they've talked with him together since early 2000, albeit one exception being Joe calling the president the morning after the assassination attempt on a personal call. He said, just to say, hey, I'm glad you're okay. But they didn't talk any politics. So interestingly, Mika and Joe are taking some heat on this, right? Like, what in the world would you go to Mar-a-Lago and meet with Trump for? I thought Mika's response was really interesting. Basically, well, what do you want us to do? Basically, pretend this isn't happening for the next 4 years? And I think what they're recognizing, and especially in light of the New York Times announcing last week that MSNBC's ratings dropped double digits just in a week since Election Day. There's a part, Mark, you know this really well. I mean, you're a media pro. You got to have an audience to continue on, right? So there's part of it, I think, for MSNBC and people like Joe and Mika are saying, look, we can't ignore half of the country. And if we try to just pretend that doesn't exist, that's not going to serve us well. The other part of it is they said, hey, you know what? Trump was pretty jovial. They said, where we can work together, talk about stuff, we will. They want to, as they said, start a dialogue. Why am I bringing this up? Because I think that, there's a lot of folks saying, look, we have 4 years. In fact, John Fetterman said this in the last few days. Look, we're going to have to engage with these folks. So we can't just keep ringing the panic bell, to your point, Mark, day after day after day. Ain't it awful? Isn't it horrible? Okay, so what are we going to do about it, Toto, in the next election and in 28? And what are we going to do it on the policy side between now and then? So there's a certain chunk of the Democratic, constituency right now that is saying, yeah, we got concerns, but we can't just live in fear. We've got to somehow engage. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. In fact, I think both have to be done at the same time. I mean, you have to be fearful and try to maybe block or redirect some of these appointments or some of these policies once Trump gets in, and then you have to really look at the next election and somehow craft a message that resonates and lands with enough of the electorate that you're able to actually carry the election. Love talking to you, man, and thank you as always. You can find Gary Dietrich across the CBS television stations and, of course, on iHeartRadio and the iHeartRadio network. You're just great to be here with us on Mondays. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Mark.
Yeah, Gary Dietrich, everybody. Right on. Do want to mention that Gary is brought to us every week by Bill Campbell at Remax Gold. So if you're relocating into or from Northern California, you're thinking about anything with your house, with real estate, you want to get a temperature of the water, check out Bill Campbell, highly respected real estate professional, and you can reach him by text or call. Here's his number, 530-448-7474, 530-448-7474. Bill Campbell, Remax Gold.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I see the chat has been popping. It's been hopping. It's been stopping for a couple of people. Kim, who is very tough, she monitors the chat. And she has, I believe, yellow carded someone at this hour.
I have not. No, I have not.
It.
Tony did it. Mm-hmm.
Tony, who is not
spamming
tough.
Thanks, Tony. He was spamming chat. I'm like, okay.
Spamming, and you are done. That is a red card, and you are done.
Good day, sir.
You're out. I don't know who you are.
And it was in all caps.
And it was in all caps. My God.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
It was just a little timeout.
Very tough. Very tough.
I love it when you're angry.
Well, very nicely done, Tony. It was a timeout then, so that would technically be a yellow card, I think.
Yeah.
Then if you are a repeat offender after a yellow card, then you get red carded. This from Debbie, who says in a super chat, and thank you for the super chat, my husband worked for the National Park Service. He could never point his finger at a bad employee and say that you're fired. There are laws to protect employees. Yeah, I think that speaks to, Debbie, what you're saying is you can't just go in and clear house at government. We'll see. But that clearly is the plan.
Perhaps if you get rid of the whole department, right? It's like
They did two things. Yeah, I was just going to, I'll remind you what happened the first time with the Trump administration. They did a couple of things. They got rid of some people, but they also made it so hard for you to continue in your job that you essentially had to push away. For example, they moved a part of the, I want to say the Interior Department or the EPA. They moved their office from Washington, where they have, their family and their kids go to school and all that kind of thing. They had to move them to Missouri, I believe it was. I forget exactly what the agency was. So they can't eliminate the agency, but they're going, great, we're just going to change the location. And the location of your work is now Missouri. So you're going to St. Louis. Well, I don't want to go to St. Louis. My kids have friends here, and my wife and I have built a life here. Well, then you can't work for the government any longer.
You're out.
That's how, and it was a pretty effective way of handling things. And you'll also be aware, I'm sure many of you are already aware of this, that at the Justice Department, many of the lawyers and those who work at the Justice Department have already begun circulating their resumes throughout Washington and throughout legal circles, seeking essentially high ground as they expect there will be a real house cleaning at Justice. So
I have a family member in the EPA who is realizing they probably won't have a job. And this is a real scientist that we need these people, and they're going to be gone.
Well, scientists are certainly not the ones who are well regarded these days in the incoming administration. It's really the death of expertise. They really get novices in to do everything. Yeah. So, and then you'll see stuff like this. This is kind of low-grade trolling from Mars, who is sort of the low-grade troll. The fact that you, Mark, still believe and hold on to Project 2025 shows how easily manipulated you far lefties are. Well, I mean, there's a lot of trolling there. He calls me a far lefty, and anybody who knows me knows. I mean, really, is a far lefty, as tough on law and order as I am. But I don't mind. You can call me a far lefty. There's a lot about the far left that I like. Okay, so F you. I'll tell you what I am. I'm a tree hugger. I care about the environment. That's where you could call me a far lefty. I think that would be a fair characterization of me. But let's leave me out of it. You say that Project 2025 has nothing of relevance to this incoming administration. The fact that I still talk about it or I still hang on to it makes me a far lefty. Dude, the guy who is taking over the FCC authored part of Project 2025. Maybe you missed that part because you were so busy trolling us. But the reality is he authored part of this Project 2025 document, which is a strategy and blueprint to take government over and flush large parts of the administrative state. So I don't think it's unfair at all to refer to Project 2025 and in relation to the new FCC commissioner, at least if this guy Brendan Carr actually does get confirmed, because he is the pick for chair. And it is the start of a conservative chapter of Washington that will involve maybe streamlining large parts of government. Now, you may view that as a good thing, but what I'm suggesting to you is that they're doing it with a heavy hand. And there's a slash and burn quality to the way Trump and his cronies are going at it that really doesn't take stock of a lot of specifics. But On just the 2025 thing, because you're trolling me about that, go ahead, look at his background. Brendan Carr is a Project 2025 author, so find somebody else to troll. Murphy Rowan says, Musk is going to have to be careful not to overstay his welcome in Mar-a-Lago. He's not picking up on social cues. As expected by a spectrum diagnosis, if he is on the spectrum, yeah, that could be missed. But he has a lot of power. This is true. We touched on it last week, that he's around a lot. He's at a lot of important meetings, and he is hanging out with Trump a lot. There's a quality of him being sort of Trump's puppy dog that I would imagine Trump enjoys, but there's also a quality of co-presidency that I'm guessing that Trump doesn't enjoy. So I think you're right. He might be well advised to, chill out a little bit.
It doesn't matter. He bought the presidency. So doesn't Trump have to do what he says? I mean, this is a guy who owns Starlink. You can't piss him off.
Well, I think you don't want to get into a big fight with him, but no. I think he bought this. I always say he bought a president, but the president that he bought was a specific kind of president. Okay, so you didn't just buy the presidency. You're not there as president. You bought this president, and this president does have certain idiosyncrasies that you have to respect. One of which is you can't take too much limelight from him, otherwise he will turn on you. He wants the limelight. He wants the good press. He wants to be popular, and so Musk can't get into his close-up shot too often. Elon has spoken with our adversaries. He holds government contracts. That is illegal, and he should be put in prison. Well, you know how I feel about this, and I've been saying this for years, even before Trump and Musk had a relationship, and even before Musk was relevant in politics the way he has become. Elon Musk is, on one level, Kim's comments about Trump. He's uncontrollable. You have such reliance on him from the standpoint of SpaceX, probably primarily, but then also even his relationship with the government and with the Boring Company. He has significant government contracts. Even Tesla has a relationship with the government. So you end up with a real problematic situation in terms of controlling him. And investigative bodies that have given him a hard time, he's already swimming away from a lot of those regulations and swimming away from, and when I say investigative bodies, I'm talking about the IRS. He's on big trouble with the IRS, but now I suspect Trump will make that all go away for him. But as to it being illegal, again, somebody's got to watch the watchers, and the watchers may be letting him skate, Trump and Musk stole the election with Putin's help, says Rob Norwood. There certainly is, there's no question that Russia had a hand in the election, but to what extent it was determinative, I don't know. And jury's still out in my mind on this. One of the reasons is, see our first conversation with Cenk, the numbers in states that Donald Trump wasn't even contending in. I mean, essentially, he's not a contender in New York. He's not a contender in New Jersey, but he got increases in votes in those states such that it was consistent with a rising support he had nationwide. For those reasons, I look at this with some skepticism, but I'm still open to it. I really am. The USA will never recover from this. Once all those scientists, diplomats, functionaries have been jettisoned, the departments cannot rebuild, and the professionals will have moved on. Catastrophe. I mean, General Putnam, too, thank you. I don't disagree with the fact that once you wreck this, it may be hard to put back together. I thought Gary Dietrich said something interesting when he said, you just can't, turn on government, turn off government. You can't, it's just not that easy. The systems of government, the methods by which things get done have taken immense periods of time to establish themselves through votes, through custom, through traditions, etc. You just can't take a wrecking ball to all of that and expect it to be rebuilt overnight. So there is some truth to that. Audit the election, says Pi Squared. Yeah. Well, how's that coming? I mean, I think there is first of all, it costs money to audit the election, and so you do need some kind of official agency to do it. But, now would be the time, if Biden wanted to do it, And there is fundraising associated with a recount. By the way, Greg Palast joins us on Wednesday, and Palast has new reporting about the voter rolls that were shed of millions of voters. And that is super relevant. So that'll be on Wednesday that Greg Palast will be here. So if you have an interest in that, please do join us for that. Where am I on this show? Let me just figure this out.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I'm just blinded by the image of RFK Jr. Choking down McDonald's on the private jet or whatever. Is that so? That's RFK Jr.
Visual. Yeah,
who is he's supposed to be this paragon of health.
Make America healthy again.
Yeah. Right. That's going to be his thing. Get us off the junk food, the obesity, the diabetes, all the stuff that's affecting us. He's going to lead us out of the wilderness. Well, he is, over the weekend, sitting down with Trump and minions, flying on Trump Force One, as it's called. There he is with Elon and is that Don Jr.?
The last thing he said is, I'm going to go find the hummus.
Yeah. There has been a lot of trolling about this. His the nominee for Secretary of Department of Health and Human Services there, RFK Jr., is seen sharing a greasy smorgasbord of processed foods and sugary sodas with Trump, Musk, and that's House Speaker Mike Johnson, who's leaning in there. The Make America Healthy Again starts tomorrow.
I guess so. After New Year's, Mark. After New Year's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If confirmed, Kennedy, who is an anti-vaccine conspiracy theorist, could soon oversee multiple government agencies, as you know, at the Food and Drug Administration among them. And he has McDonald's fries, which, of course, contain seed oils, a toxic ingredient that he said he wants to eliminate from America's food supply. And it only gets worse from there. Highly processed food, etc., all leads to the high rates of chronic disease in the U.S. that RFK has said he wants to eliminate. But I think that there is, this is a horrible thing for me to say. There are two things. There are two things you could have done. There are two things you could have done. You could say, "Hey, man, I'm not going to fight this battle here. This is what he's serving here on the plane. I'm just going to eat it, and whatever." And so, hopefully people who understand that, the social pressure here with the incoming president, Mike Johnson over my shoulder, Elon here, I'm just going to move along, get along kind of thing. Right. But what I would have said is, guys, I can't eat this. I have a platform that's all about healthy foods. I can't have a picture of me eating McDonald's. I mean, that's like what I would have said. And then they would have said, come on, you can. And then, so I think he caved on this too quickly. He should have said, hey, I can't eat this stuff. Thank you, but I can't eat it. I just can't have a picture of me eating McDonald's and drinking Coca-Cola. Just will not happen.
Withstand peer pressure from the bros, really?
No, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think he should have should have pushed back on it.
Did McDonald's give a lot of money to the Trump campaign? What's going on?
They didn't need to. He eats McDonald's and KFC almost completely. Meantime,
the whole "I'm working at a McDonald's for the day" thing was like the huge promotion for McDonald's, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. But that was associated with that was a great, and I said it at the time. I thought that was a good photo op for him. But
the Mark Thompson Show.
Meantime, if you're healthy and you're eating carrots, you could still be killing yourself, as it turns out. Yeah, the carrots that are now being recalled because they're contaminated with E. coli are sold in stores under multiple brand names, including that Whole Foods 365. Wow, when you go to Whole Foods and you pay all that extra money, you're figuring you're going to get something that doesn't have E. coli in it, but you'd be wrong. Cal Organic, Nature's Promise, O Organics, Trader Joe's, and Wegmans, all among the brands that contain potentially the E. coli contaminated carrots. Grimway Farms, based in Bakersfield, has recalled the carrots. They include the whole carrots and the baby organic carrots sold in bags under all those names I just mentioned. The carrots are no longer in stores, but the CDC is warning consumers to not eat recalled bag carrots. Check your refrigerators, they're saying. Throw away any carrots that fit the description. Most of the infected people live in New York, Minnesota, and Washington, followed by California and Oregon. Although infections have been reported in states throughout the country, 19 states have been affected by this, and one person is dead, and E. coli is the result of contamination because of a lack of hand washing, of course.
Gross. How do you get E. coli on that many carrots?
Good question. It gets into the, man, that really must, I mean, I want those bathrooms really well inspected.
Gross.
I mean, there have been several E. coli outbreaks recently. Remember McDonald's? There were 100 McDonald's customers that had got sick from an E. coli outbreak.
That was because of chopped onions.
No,
Yeah.
that's right. And organic walnuts sickened people in 19 states from E. coli. That happened in April. So they say the food supply is generally safe. Hasn't been a lot of this, they say. But there also hasn't been much success in curbing E. coli outbreaks. So that is the, dirty irrigation. Oh, is that what it is, Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tony, a different Tony, not our Tony. Tony Z says it's dirty irrigation. Really? So it's not washing your hands. Huh, interesting. It's a pretty brutal, E. coli, it's a pretty brutal, what am I trying to say? Symptoms of E. coli infection are brutal, and obviously they can kill you. So, so Merry Christmas, everybody.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Yeah, this is what Rhonda says that cow feces infects the water with E. coli, then the veggies get infected when they're watered with that.
I see. So it's not washing your hands. Thank you. Again, the audience
comes through
and corrects me.
I
really.
stand corrected.
I do. Yeah, that's really cool. So it's wow. You may have seen it. You may have heard about it. We talked about it last week that the Onion was taking over Infowars, the URL that was Alex Jones's platform for so long. So there was an auction, and Onion, the parody site, comedy site, they won the auction. So they're taking over Infowars. Except Elon Musk lawyered up, and he found a judge in Texas to say that the auction had questions around it. The transparency of the auction process was in question, and this judge, this Texas bankruptcy judge, is now saying we should pause this and see if we shouldn't reopen the auction process. Nobody should feel comfortable with the results of this auction, said Judge Christopher M. Lopez. X-Corp filed this protest, and they don't really state what they're trying to do here, but presumably they're trying to buy up the Infowars URL. Attorneys for X listed in the filing aren't commenting, but both Musk and Jones are known allies of President-elect Donald Trump. Musk has allowed Infowars to broadcast on X while Infowars is in limbo, right? Jones has used Infowars as a platform to promote conspiracy theories, far-right ideologies, and misinformation. He often focuses on events and social issues to sell related products like supplements and survival gear. Jones's bankruptcy stems from his obligation to pay $1.5 billion in damages to the families of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting victims. He defamed them, of course, false claims about the massacre being a hoax. You remember all of that. We've talked about it in detail. And as I say, we detailed the fact that essentially the URL was going to be transferred over to The Onion. But now they may not be able to truly take that URL over without getting into some kind of back and forth legally with Elon Musk's people.
It turns out Trump is both, but Musk is now becoming a friend to liars everywhere. He likes to protect the lying liars who lie. He's got a soft spot for the liars.
I mean, I think calling Alex Jones a liar is to be kind. What he did to those families from the Sandy Hook massacre victims, it's grotesque on a level that I can't even describe. Said that the whole thing was a hoax, that there were actors involved in this entire thing. These people who lost their children to all of this gun violence that has infected America, they had some of them to move because they were being harassed so repeatedly and relentlessly in their homes. Alex Jones is despicable and rotten on a level that is literally indescribable. And so there's no fate for Alex Jones that is awful enough. I hope The Onion does get to use the Infowars URL, says Blue Spark. They will get a zillion MAGA suckers to believe it all sorts of hilarious stuff. Kind of like it already. That's true. People who don't really get the joke. That could be. Do I have time for Kim's news? What do I do here? Do we have anybody else coming in, or am I good?
That's it. You're good.
Oh, I love this. Okay, great. Because I have some stuff on the Trump appointees. I have the Trump nominee update that we will give you. There is a fracking CEO who is going to be involved with the Trump administration as the energy secretary, if confirmed.
Isn't that nice? Yeah. It's great news for America. Woohoo!
Yeah. Pete Hegseth and his payment and confidentiality. I mean, so much for confidentiality. I guess everybody's aware of it now. And of course, the reason that Pete Hegseth was forced to leave the military had to do with his tattoos. We can discuss that more. They're the same tattoos that you'll find on Proud Boys and that you'll also find on the 3 Percenters. But and then you can say, well, it's a tattoo that's associated with Christian nationalism. And so the Biden administration people felt that he was a risk to be on certain details associated with what he was doing in the military. So he left the military, and then he paid the woman off to keep it quiet so he wouldn't lose his gig at Fox News. So there's a lot of stuff going on, something on religion in schools. I've got a lot to do still today. And I also still have some video. I haven't played you the Monica Crowley bite on sound bite on it's pretty rich. Don't you think so, Tony? I think that's one of the great sound bites when it comes to Trump's new appointments. So we'll share that with you as well. Smash the like button like a boss.
With your iron rod.
Got a big week ahead, as I say. Greg Palast in on Wednesday with some new reporting on the election. David K. Johnston in tomorrow to talk both about the election and the Trump administration as it is currently configured and is coming together. Also, Elon Musk and his oversized place in a Trump administration. We'll talk about that with David K. Johnston as well. Much to do. Smash the like button, all that stuff. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Multiple sources indicate President Biden is clearing the way for Ukraine to use U.S.-supplied long-range missiles against Russia. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has been requesting permission to use these weapons to strike deep inside Russia for months. The policy shift comes as North Korean soldiers arriving at the front to fight alongside Russian troops have come to light. The House may vote to release former Congressman Matt Gaetz's ethics probe Despite Speaker Mike Johnson's efforts to keep it sealed, President-elect Trump selected the Florida Republican rather, not former, to be his attorney general, with a probe involving bribes and illegal sexual activity surrounding the congressman. Some Republican senators have questioned whether Gates would be the best person for the job because of all of this. President-elect Trump also confirming his plans for mass deportations once back in the White House. A post on Trump's Truth Social platform said the incoming Trump administration is reportedly prepared to declare a national emergency and use the military assets for a mass Trump deportation program. Trump responded to the post with simply, "True." Ohio Governor Mike DeWine and other local leaders are speaking out against a reported neo-Nazi group march in Columbus over the weekend. DeWine says the group members were wearing masks and carrying Nazi flags Saturday afternoon while spewing vile, racist hate speech against people of color and Jews. The governor went on to say that they will not tolerate that type of hate in Ohio. Prosecutors are calling witnesses as the murder trial of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley enters its second day. In opening statements on Friday, prosecutors told the court forensic and video evidence proves Jose Ibarra murdered Riley while she was jogging on campus in February. Ibarra is charged with felony murder, malice, murder, kidnapping, bodily injury, and aggravated assault as well. President-elect Trump says a free press is vital in order to make America great again. In an interview, it looks like we're going toward a state media, so I don't know what about free press.
Yeah. I'll decide what a free press is, but it's vital.
I'll let you know when we've covered your free press, right? In an interview with Fox News Digital Monday, Trump said he feels an obligation to Americans to work with the press. I thought the press was the enemy of the people in Trumpville, no? Trump met with the hosts of MSNBC's morning talk show Morning Joe on Friday for the first time in 7 years. The hosts said they met with him because they had concerns about his cabinet picks thus far, but they're reopening the lines of communication.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Enter Project 2025 in Oklahoma, where the education superintendent is requiring public school superintendents to show students his video announcement of a new Department of Religious Freedom and Patriotism within the State Department of Education. Again, this is in Oklahoma. Oh. In the video, Republican Ryan Walters says religious liberty has been attacked and patriotism mocked by woke teachers unions. And then in the video, he prays for the leaders of the United States and Trump after saying students do not have to join the prayer.
Oh, my God.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
It's Oklahoma already worked at the plan to shovel, $3.5 million to Trump to, $3.5 million here, $3.5 million there. It turns into real money because they're buying the Bibles, and the way they worked it, I think most of you are probably aware of this, but just to remind you, they had a demand that all of the schools in Oklahoma have a Bible that also had the Declaration of Independence in it. Well, there are no such Bibles that exist, so there's only one Bible that has both the Bible and the Declaration of Independence in it, and that's the Trump Bible, the Lee Greenwood Trump Bible. And so that was his first way of kissing Trump's ass. And now the second way of kissing Trump's ass, and also, of course, of sending money to Donald Trump, this is this religious thing. Now, he may be legit religious crazy, but the whole idea of patriotism and religiosity is a contradiction by definition in this country. Supposedly, there's supposed to be a separation of church and state. So it's an odd thing to say, the Declaration of Patriotism also includes sort of a religious fealty, some sort of allegiance that you have to religion. It's absurd, yet one more way in which this is absurd. But look, this is the Christian nationalism that is rising in America.
Well, she held out for almost 2 weeks, but now recalled Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price conceded today. So she held a news conference and said, yeah, I lost. 4 people are dealing with injuries after a plane crash interrupted the NHRA drag racing finals in Pomona, California. Authorities say a single-engine plane came down incredibly close to the grandstands at the Pomona drag strip on Sunday. The plane took out several cars and RVs parked nearby. No one on the ground was injured, but the pilot and 3 passengers suffered minor to moderate injuries. NHRA officials temporarily stopped their event after that crash, but ultimately resumed the races. Speaking of which, NHRA funny car driver Austin Prock set a new drag racing world speed record he's a rookie. In his first round win at Sunday's NHRA finals in Pomona, Prock hit 341.68 miles per hour. He is the first to ever break the 340 mile per hour barrier at an NHRA national event.
And he did it at an event where there was a plane crash. So
where there was a plane crash, yeah. A little stress going on there in the sky.
Yeah.
And you know what? Who's to say what art is? But lastly, a banana taped to a wall is going up for auction this week at Sotheby's, and it could bring in more than $1 million. Yes, it is a banana taped to a wall. It was originally
but it's the way it was taped to the wall. This is a classic rookie mistake.
Yeah. It was originally an art piece called Comedian by the Italian artist Maurizio Catalan in 2019. It sold for more than $100,000, but the value has gone up tenfold while the banana has rotted away. The winner of the auction will be allowed to reproduce it as an original artwork by Catalan. There it is. It is artfully taped.
Well, it is pretty beautiful now that I look at it. Yeah.
I mean, who knew? I mean, if that's all it takes, I could slap a banana to a wall with a piece of gray duct tape. That's it.
Well, gray duct tape, it's not quite gray. Is it gray? I guess it is, maybe.
Yeah.
It looks greenish gray, maybe.
Metallic
You could
gray.
pick maybe a different color.
Yeah.
And,
See if anyone will cough up the cash.
Courtney is way into art and modern art and stuff. But so I've kind of opened my field of view on this stuff. But I think that's a bit,
Yeah. I mean, to some, maybe that's beauty.
The problem with some of the modern, well, it's beauty or it's a message or whatever.
Yeah.
There was I remember a young guy who was an artist and I was trying to support him. And so I said, I really love your stuff. I'd love to do something for the house, blah, blah. So we sat down and I said, just do whatever you want. I don't think that there was a very extensive conversation before he did the art. So he delivers the art piece and it's all these symbols. There's a feminine symbol, the sign for feminine,
Sure.
And then there's a fist and a couple of other things. And I said, "Oh, this is really great." I said, "What? It looks really good. It does look good." I said, "Tell me what it means." And he said, "It means whatever you want it to mean." And I said, "No. But what did you want it to mean? Like when you were putting these various symbols in place?" And he said, "I don't know." He said, "I just thought that they would look good together." I said, "Well, aren't these things speaking to some issue, or maybe it's a general vision or outlook you have?" And he said, it's whatever you want it to be. So then this is the real thing. Then I said, well, which side is the top and which side is the bottom? Like, how should I hang it? He said, any way you want to hang it. Either way, it could be at the top or the bottom. I'm thinking, dude, I hate this. I'm already committed to it. You've already got the money, but I hate this. You literally don't know which side is the top and which side is the bottom? I don't know. So maybe I still have a ways to go in really appreciating art. But
oh, man.
Yeah, there you go.
This is where you take a sip of your Coachella Valley
coffee, and I just called it,
This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Oh, it's good.
So good.
Yeah.
Get something for the holidays. Get a gift for the holidays. This is the Ocotillo Espresso. I had to get a double shot after my going around and around with Tony getting this camera set up today. It was crazy. But I do love it. I love it. And I recommend everything on the site. And there are, I think, holiday baskets and things you can put together. They'll even include a holiday card. They're very
They have the Christmas blend
personal.
coffee.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas blend. The spirit of the holiday season can be in your cup. Why not get a little spirit of the coffee that makes the holiday season so special? CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. So it's 10% off at checkout, and Mark T is the code at checkout, and you'll get to 10% off anything on the site. So you can buy as much or, as little as you want, and you'll enjoy it. 10% off. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Love that they're supporters of the show. Oh, there's the holiday blend. I really liked it last year. I haven't tasted it yet this year. Yeah.
Supposed to be really good.
They really work hard over there to, of course, it's all hand roasted. It's all fresh crop, new crop. So these aren't beans that have been sitting around a long time for a few months and then they're discounted on the internet. There's a quality of interaction that you'll have with CoachellaValleyCoffee.com that you'll really appreciate. So if you want to put together your own kind of gift basket, I'm sure they'll probably do something for you in that regard as well. So
here's what they say about the holiday blend, that it has amazing sweet citrus notes finished off with a nice dark chocolate from the French roast.
No, it does sound good. Yes,
And
they're
they
Coachella right here in California, in answer to your question, Rich. Go ahead.
They have a winter tea too. It's called the Winter Solstice Herbal Tea, and it has notes of warming spices.
Oh.
Perfect for winter. Cinnamon, star anise, spicing things up with the familiar smells of the holiday, while the sweet creaminess of apples, golden raisins, peaches, cranberries, and blueberries combine with the tanginess of hibiscus and meld like magic with subtle citrus.
Wow.
That's not fake. That's real.
That is really terrific. Gosh,
Yeah.
the way you read it, too, it
Wow.
makes me want to experience it all over again. Excuse me. Just perfect. I love it. Whatever you want, tea, coffee, go at it. It's great. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Mark T at checkout for 10% off.
I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Hey, Mark, it's George Santos here. A lot of people are telling me you're a liar.
That's pure speculation.
What's a little lie between friends?
Morning.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
This is a word from the Lord, and he's not happy.
Good day, sir.
Seriously, what the
Why are you yelling?
Yeah. Loving it on a Monday. Glad you could be with us. If you have not yet, please smash the like button like a boss. Do it. It's free. Share anything you want on this show. It's the way we grow the show. When you share it, it really matters. So we've been able to grow this show from, it's really the primordial ooze. It's a small business, and we need the support of all of you, which is why we make such a big deal out of those who are part of our PayPal and Patreon community. It is the way that on an ongoing basis we are supported, and we can make payroll because we can count on that Patreon and PayPal money. But please don't misunderstand me. The Patreon and PayPal is just one part. The other is super stickers, super chats. We just love that. And in the new year, there may be even some more fun coming. We're working to get that. I wanted to, it was funny. Somebody today, Grayson said, he's a $20 Patreon member. Big shout out for
Big shout
that.
out.
Thank you very much. So $20 a month from Grayson to support our show. And he said, I don't know what happened. He said, I think I changed credit cards. So it's saying that I'm a new member, but I've actually been supporting you for quite some time. So Grayson, thank you.
Nice. Yeah.
And to all of you who have been supporting us, really do appreciate it. And as I say, there are any number of ways to support us. And in those any number of ways, we really do sustain, hopefully, into the new year, and we can keep everybody happy. So back to quickly some politics. Do you mind if I give you a little bit more on this? And then Then I have a couple of things that aren't related to Trump or anything, but they're just as
The Mark Thompson Show.
I feel like it's kind of a big deal that Donald Trump is compiling lists of current and former military officers for possible court-martials. All of the officers so far were involved in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, which, independent reviews of the withdrawal from Afghanistan blame Biden and Trump. And I'd suggest to you that the original sin of Afghanistan withdrawal started with what? With Trump. Mm-hmm. Trump was the one who contacted the Taliban, wanted them to come to Camp David, the Taliban. And they scotched that idea, but he agreed to being out of Afghanistan by a certain date. This is the guy who always said, I'll never tell the enemy what date I'm going to do anything. There's an element of surprise. Well, as it turned out, he, in his administration, was responsible for a lot of the pre-withdrawal chaos that then was accompanied by the day of or days of withdrawal chaos. I mean, one really dark day. But you could argue, and I did argue at the time, that like the closure of Bagram Air Force Base, I thought was a mistake the way it was done. You began to lose in the preceding year, before Biden came in, during the Trump administration, you began to lose the foothold in Afghanistan that would have eased the pullout of American troops. I give Biden credit for ending that forever war, but the way it ended was ugly. And then I suggest that many of the translators and those who we worked with in Afghanistan, who we really had a compact with, we had an agreement with to take them out with us. We didn't honor that agreement. I mean, and again, I don't mean to be too down on America, but if you look back at history, man, we're not good at honoring these agreements. We make a lot of promises and then we go back on those promises. And maybe the latest one we're going back on is Ukraine once Trump comes in. Now, you can argue about Ukraine all you want, but the reality is they gave up nukes with an understanding that there would be a defense pact of sorts with the West. And now they find themselves in the situation where they're fighting for their lives, quite literally, and for their country. The Trump transition team is compiling a list of senior, current, and former U.S. military officers who were directly involved in the withdrawal from Afghanistan, and they're exploring whether they could be court-martialed for their involvement. Officials working on the transition are considering creating a commission to investigate the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan, including gathering information about who was directly involved in the decision-making for the military, how it was carried out, and whether the military leaders could be eligible for charges as serious as treason.
Wow.
They're taking it very seriously, said an insider with person with knowledge of the plan. I would say one thing, and then I'll round it out. I thought that the Afghanistan thing was a political thing. Again, it was like, I'm going to build a wall, Mexico is going to pay for it. I'm going to round up all the illegal immigrants and I'm going to deport them all. It's 15 million people, I'm going to use the military. Again, still, I don't think it's going to happen. I think, as I've told you, I think there will be high-profile deportations. I think it'll be ugly. I think it'll be heartbreaking. I think it'll be destabilizing for the U.S. economy, but it's nothing on the scale of what he's running on. And so, Afghanistan, I always felt like he points to Afghanistan because he knows it's a political winner for him. People forget about Afghanistan. It was terrible the way that was done. Now he really is going to follow through with court-martialing people for the way they handle the Afghanistan withdrawal. First of all, again, as a practical matter, I just don't know how you can do that. Now, maybe you can find friendly enough officers to preside over such a thing, to maybe make a show trial out of it. I mean, this is, again, this is what rising despotism does, these high-profile show trials. But there's so many chains of command associated with any kind of big operation like the withdrawal from Afghanistan that I've got to think that that's just a practical matter, once again, not going to happen.
Maybe he thinks it makes him look tough, like, a new teacher coming into the class, laying down the law, right? So no one messes with him. So maybe it's all just this big show of power.
Well, I think it is a show. And I think right now it is rhetoric to kind of impress upon people, we're tough and we're going to follow through on these things. But again, the independent review from the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, this was in 2022, he assigned blame both to the Trump administration and to the Biden administration. So if you really want to do a true X-ray, a true post-mortem on what happened in Afghanistan, I'm sorry, you have to look at, again, the way Trump shares some of this blame. And I'm talking about for the chaotic withdrawal, because our ability to withdraw smoothly from Afghanistan was affected by diminishment of the footprint that we had in Afghanistan and the leverage that we had in Afghanistan. And that diminishment and that leverage was all related to Trump policy. So we'll have to check with the new Defense Secretary, Fox News personality Pete Hegseth, who was very critical of the Afghanistan withdrawal. He did a book on it, War on Warriors, and he said the next president of the United States needs to radically overhaul Pentagon senior leadership to make us ready to defend our nation and defeat our enemies. I mean, again, this is like, these guys are so slogan-driven, but once again, he might get passed because this transition is marked by so many of these bizarre cabinet nominees, and you can't stonewall all of them. There he is, Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth paid an accuser but denies any kind of sexual assault. The attorney for Hegseth says that it was a consensual encounter between these two people, and local cops had investigated it in Monterey, and they said that there was not enough there to justify charges being leveled, but they declined to release information about the victim, and they said that the full police report will not be released either. He's not been charged with any criminal case, but he does admit through his attorney that money was paid to keep her quiet. He settled it because it was during the Me Too movement, and he didn't want to lose his job, is the statement from the attorney. He didn't want to lose his job at Fox. If the accusation became public, that was feared to be the outcome. The attorney statement doesn't say how much Hegseth paid the accuser, but the woman is not being named, and they're saying, hey, I was being blackmailed and I just paid it off. The alleged assault took place in the early morning hours of October 8th, 2017 at the address of the Hyatt Regency Monterey Hotel and Spa. It was reported by the woman 4 days later, and Hegseth was there as a speaker at a conference held by the California Federation of Republican Women at a hotel during that time. Boy, that's pretty ironic, isn't it? Trump selected Hegseth as his defense secretary, despite the fact that Hegseth has no senior military or public office experience. He's not run anything, as we told you here on this show last week when the nomination was first talked about. And now the sexual assault news. We'll have to see. Again, when you compare it to Matt Gaetz, maybe Hegseth gets through. I don't know. I mean, again, the Pentagon, you've got roughly 3 million people working there. You have to have some managerial experience to handle a massive organization of that size. And look, that's just part of it. I'm leaving out the hints of white nationalism that sort of get into the Hegseth conversation, not just the tattoos, things he said, the fact that women, he feels, shouldn't serve in the military. I mean, there are aspects to Pete Hegseth's public comments and clearly doctrines that he would put in place, if he could, that are just inconsistent with the U.S. military today. And now, you may say, yeah, I like the fact that he's going to reimagine the U.S. military. Dude, he's going to have trouble just administering to this huge group of people. He's not going to reimagine anything.
Can you imagine the conversation, though, with, Trump and whoever he's talking to going over all these appointments? Well, maybe it's not a good idea. He's got a sexual assault allegation. Well, yeah, so do I. So I've been found legally liable for rape. And over again. These are the bad guys. These are the guys you root against in the movies. They're the bad guys. And these are the guys that are going to be in charge.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be disillusioned.
No, completely agree. Completely agree. It's definitely the bullies on the playground who are running things in the school.
The Mark Thompson Show.
In Pennsylvania, the election litigation continuing with a twist. A Senate recount is playing out. At least 4 counties are ignoring an order from the state Supreme Court that undated or misdated mail-in ballots cannot be counted. I mean, there is so much litigation associated with this election. Before we even had it, there were already lawyers on both sides that were populating courtrooms from coast to coast. But few states saw as much legal haggling as Pennsylvania. There are 4 counties in Pennsylvania, Bucks, Philadelphia, Center, and Montgomery. And local election officials there are acting in open defiance of a ruling from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that arrived weeks before the election. The court found that mail ballots, M-A-I-L, obviously, that are missing the date on the outer envelope or have the wrong date cannot be counted for this election. That's what the Pennsylvania Supreme Court decided. Well, the Bucks County Election Commission said, we're counting them. Quote, it is a pretty stupid thing to not count someone's vote simply because they didn't date an envelope for the ballot. And that was the chairman of the board and a Republican or Democrat, do you think? Anyone?
Bucks County, I'm going Republican.
Democrat.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. That was a meeting where the board voted 2-1 to count 405 ballots with the date errors on the envelope, adding that the election officials know when the ballots were printed for voters, making the outer envelope date requirement meaningless. The law needs to be changed, he said. The commissioners were advised that they were likely to be sued no matter how they ruled, so we're going to get sued either way, he said. I'd rather be on the side of counting ballots than not counting ballots.
Mm-hmm.
Then the McCormick campaign sued the county, demanding it obey the Pennsylvania Supreme Court guidance, not count the ballots, even though the ballots wouldn't really affect the outcome. And the Republican National Committee moved to intervene. So this is a battleground state, 19 electoral college votes, and a critical Senate race. And they had to deal with all of this back and forth from judicial rulings. And there were a lot of concerns that the election in Pennsylvania would be marked by problems, right? Lancaster, Fayette, and Berks refused to certify their primary results in 2022. And we talked about the fact there was a lot of anxiety that they may not be certifying results this time. But when Trump won, most of these concerns about rogue certification or lack of certification went away because everybody's ready to certify for Trump, at least the Trumpies who are in control. But the decisions by this Bucks County Election Commission and these other handful of counties, Philadelphia, Montgomery, and Center, have put this local election official thing really in the center stage. So there are all kinds of lawsuits, and this will be continued. But I'm just saying, Pennsylvania, it ain't over. And, Montgomery County, a large suburban county just outside of Philadelphia, they voted 2-1 to count ballots with date omissions or errors.
There's no way the election flips back, though. I mean,
no.
It is what it is.
This is primarily about local seats.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they're significant enough in number to affect anything else. But it speaks to the fact that they do need to get some kind of coherence on this because, counting ballots with misdated envelopes or with no date on the envelope. I mean, again, there are ways to cross-reference it beyond just this the date on the outer envelope, but you really have to begin to get some kind of policy in place that makes sense. That's what's happening in Pennsylvania. By the way, do you say envelope or do you say envelope? I find myself saying both.
Yeah,
which is
me
a
too.
really weird.
What?
I know. I'm surprised by it myself.
It depends on what word precedes the word envelope or envelope.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah, sure. I guess. I didn't realize, but you're right. I mean, that would affect unwittingly, unconsciously might affect it. Yeah, I don't know.
You say, do you have an envelope? Or
maybe I do, maybe I don't. I don't know what
Can I get an envelope?
Yeah.
The envelope, please. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the rule is.
Well, Tony, all this talk about the Trump cabinet, it gives me cause for concern. I'm a little worried, to be honest. You got a guy who wants to run the Justice Department, and Matt Gaetz, he's never been in the building. Usually people who run the Justice Department, their lawyers have worked at the Justice Department for decades. I mean, even Bill Barr, who was a loathsome, awful person, at least he knew, what the hell he was doing. Gaetz is there just to kind of hit on the secretaries or, the interns. So, Tony, without any further delay, if you would please, I need to hear how good these Trump cabinet picks are. Will you play me a little Monica Crowley? Thank you.
Making America great again. Every single cabinet pick that he has announced so far is incredibly accomplished and strong on their own. As a team, this really is a dream team. We have not seen this kind of talent pool since the founding fathers.
Wow, we haven't seen it since the founding fathers. I am.
What? Who is having that conversation?
Apparently.
Do you mean instead of dreams, does she really mean nightmares?
No, I don't know. You can have bad dreams. I liked it. Play it for me again, Tony.
Envelope, I guess,
Monica
right?
Crowley. She seems to know her stuff. She states it. Go ahead, Monica. Tell me how good
Making America great again. Every single cabinet pick that he has announced so far is incredibly accomplished and strong on their own. As a team, this really is a dream team. We have not seen this kind of talent pool since the founding fathers.
Since the founding fathers. Yeah, damn straight. Shut up, libs. These people are great. So what? They have lack a little experience. Whatever. Maybe that's a good thing.
What world
Meantime,
does she live in?
Here's a guy, Chris Wright, the CEO of a Denver-based fracking company called Liberty Energy. He is going to be the next pick for the Secretary of Energy. He is also going to serve on this newly formed Council of National Energy, which Trump said is going to consist of all agencies involved in the permitting, production, generation, distribution, regulation, and transportation of energy. North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, who's Trump's pick for Secretary of the Department of Interior, is going to be the chairman of that. They want to drill, baby, drill, green light everything. Let's, get rid of regulations. Let's ramp up distribution, production, generation, all these permitting. I want it all. Chris, who you see there, has been a leading technologist and entrepreneur in energy, Trump said. In addition to Chris's work on fracking oil and natural gas, he also sits on the board of a modular nuclear reactor company. And he's talked about the potential of nuclear. Randy's a big nuclear guy in our chat. He might like that. Harold Hamm, the Oklahoma-based fracking billionaire who had Trump's ear on energy issues during the campaign, says that Wright was his top choice for the post. So he's happy. So the fracking and oil and gas people are really happy with these new choices.
Why do you think that guy had Trump's ear?
I'm guessing money.
I'm guessing you're right. So
donations.
So do you
donors.
think maybe he paid for the energy secretary choice?
No, could be.
Well,
could
maybe.
be. Yeah, it's a very transactional kind of world, politics in Washington, and Trump takes it to high art. I thought David Remnick wrote a little run that was pretty good. I'm just going to read it to you real quick, and then we're going to wrap things up. But I do have, I just like this. I remember that's the reason I put it in here. But I honestly don't remember what it was, so I'm hearing it. I go through a lot of material, so you'll have to forgive me. But he says, at least as a matter of rhetoric, Trump is uninterested in conventional notions of expertise. It smacks of elitism. Nor is he focused on assembling a council of constructive disagreement, a team of rivals. That smacks of disloyalty. As his personnel choices rolled out in recent days, it became clear that they pointed wholly to his long-held priorities, and they are not the common good. The nominations of Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of Health and Human Services, Pete Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, and Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence are the residue of Trump's resentments and his thirst for retribution. In Gaetz, who faces allegations which he denies of illegal drug use and having sex with an underage girl, Trump sees himself a man wrongly judged. In Kennedy, an anti-vax conspiracy theorist, he sees a vindication of his own suspicion of science and his wildly erratic handling of the COVID crisis. In Hegseth, who defends war criminals and lambasts, quote, woke generals, he sees vengeance against the military establishmentarians who called him unfit. In Gabbard, who finds the good in foreign dictators, he sees someone who might shape the work of the intelligence agencies to help justify ending U.S. support for Ukraine. In other words, Trump's nominations, in their reckless endorsement of the dangerously unqualified, look like the most flagrant act of vindictive trolling since the rise of the internet. But it is a trolling beyond mischief. All these appointees are meant to bolster Trump's effort to lay waste to the officials and the institutions that he's come to despise. These appointees are not intended to be his advisors. They are his shock troops. And that really landed with me, and I touched on it with Gary Dietrich. To me, Trump views government as the enemy. Trump views government as the thing that investigated him, that hit him with tax bills through the IRS. The impediments to his happiness have all been through government. And these appointments and the way he prosecutes his presidency has every bit to do with revenge. And so all of these people who voted for Trump because he's going to, I don't know, make America great again or deport the immigrants, and that's your big issue, whatever. I mean, you're going to be, of course, you're going to be left in the dust, because what really is important to Trump is dismantling this thing that has been such a burden and such an irksome thing in his life. It has been an irritant. It has been a weight on him. He wants government done. And so he will get his revenge, not only on the government institutions, but on the people that he associates with government having gone after him. I'm talking about the Jack Smiths of the world and beyond. So,
The Mark Thompson Show.
To be continued. We'll talk to David K. Johnson a little bit about that tomorrow. There's some pretty live stuff in the chat. I recommend everybody check it out. I do want to acknowledge No Contendo says Ben Carson is nowhere to be found. A brain surgeon versus a crackhead at 8HS, but Ben Carson was put at HUD. That's right. He's put Housing and Urban Development. No biscuits for Scott or Donaldson. Tap dancing fools. Yeah. So first of all, Carson is a little bit in the mix. So you may not have seen it, but Ben Carson is kind of hovering around, although I don't think he has an official position yet. He is still considered a supporter of Trump, and he might be up for something. I remember Ben Carson because, I mean, in addition to being, I think he's a bit whacked, to be polite about it. But he spent $1 million. This is the first thing he did when he was head of HUD. He spent $1 million redecorating his office. So $1 million taxpayer dollars to redecorate the office. So
that's a really nice table, though. Come on.
Yeah, really, really cool. Mars to troll on the way out. I'm surprised you guys didn't buy Infowars. It'd be up your alley spouting conspiracy theories like the election was hacked. I didn't say the election was hacked. And I am, as much as I have enjoyed Mars, I'm kind of growing tired of that. Feels a little trolly, like almost a little too much for me, but I might just be having a bad day, so I'll let it pass for now. Tax the churches, says Phineas. No kidding. Do you want to be the politician to suggest that? How do you think that'll go? I'm with you, 100%. But, you know, I don't think it's going anywhere. Oklahoma isn't for nothing the worst school system in the USA. Can't make good choices. Yeah, well, now those Bibles are in there. They'll do a lot better. Thank you, Ronnie, for that. Harry says, the Bible discussion is going to send me to the Red Jack Tabernacle. Thanks for the $5 super chat. Yeah, the Red Jack Saloon in San Francisco. We love it. If you're in San Francisco ever, get on it. There it is. From the outside. Love it. Open late. And a great way to watch sports and just kick it.
Get your martini, get your kamikaze. Go for it.
Go for it. Yeah. They're really good supporters of the show. And they live right above the place, which is amazing. Agolf Twitler says, Trump's God Bless the USA Bible is manufactured in Chinese sweatshops at a cost of $3. He blames Biden for selling them for $60 to the poor in American trailer parks. What would Jesus do, is what Agolf says. Yes. Well, he's getting a bargain. Everything in Trump land is made in China. Everything, you know, the sneakers, the Bibles, it's all, you know. Victoria, thank you for a super sticker for $20. Victoria D, how about a big shout out? Where's my big shout out?
Big shout out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I'd like to give you a thank you, so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victoria. Victoria, by the way, is a sort of British-sounding name.
Thank you so much.
Rather like it. Victoria D, thank you. We are crowd-funded, so love the crowd that funds. Thank you, Victoria D. And finally, Angel in the Bay Area says, what? Oh, the King Trump version of the Bible printed in China. I Googled it. Yes, it is. FYI, she says, it is printed in China. Well, it's the place to get all the low-cost Trump labor and printing done. You have new details on something? I'm just seeing this in the chat.
Yeah, there's an article that came out about the new details of Matt Gaetz's sexual, accusations against him. And apparently the victims testified that he paid them via Venmo, which is always the way that you
using Venmo.
Yeah. They apparently were big on going to the sex parties, like the Diddy style sex parties.
Oh, right. That's what Gates like to do, right?
Yeah.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
Well, the process and protocols were that they'd be paid through Venmo, I guess. Yeah.
This report says that transactions Gates had in 2018 with an accused sex trafficker for a total of $900 via Venmo, that then this sex trafficker alleged sent the money to 3 teenage girls in transactions labeled tuition and school. So there's a lot of new details coming out. I guess you can squash the report, but you can't squash the details forever. So all the
someone did this to spoil our Christmas.
Well,
all the dirty things are leaking out.
Yeah, I don't know. And look, you know me on this, and I know this isn't popular sometimes, but I'm not the sex police. You want to have sex, do it. You want to have sex outside your marriage, do it. You want to have sex with your wife and somebody else, or with your it doesn't matter.
It matters to me that they're underage.
Let me finish.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Can you let him finish, sir?
No, I cannot.
God, I can't even on my own goddamn show finish a thought.
That's right.
What's important here is that this girl is underage.
Why are you yelling?
Because I'm trying to finish a thought. She's underage. And that is, I will let Kim yell at me in response. She does get one yell back.
No, it's okay.
But the reality is this girl is underage, and she is being trafficked across state lines and being paid to attend these things. Now it's not about who you're messing around with and who you're rolling around with. Yeah. It takes it to a whole other ugly level.
Yeah.
So these are important details. And this guy, I think, now I'm told that the Trump people really do want him in at justice. I'm hearing that from more and more people and reading it in published reports that insiders say, no, Trump is ready to die on this hill. I don't think so. I don't think so. At some point, the heat just gets too hot and too great, and you jump out of the kitchen. And I think that's what's going to happen on the Gates appointment. So, all right, that's that on Gates. But so watch for that Venmo receipt in a
The Mark Thompson Show
near you. Now, please yell about your the after party live. I mean, it is coming up. The after party live is Kim.
We'll do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
See, there you go. That's the
after party live. Please come subscribe. We need you.
Yeah, it's a. I like the after party live. It's kind of the way you get away from all of this stuff, you know. But we will be here tomorrow with David K. Johnston, and I want to ask David about Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and whether they can really reshape government. I also want to ask him about these military tribunals that David thinks Trump actually can get away with. So David's talked before about a Trump presidency bringing on a lot of these military tribunals and his retribution essentially being a reality. So we will get to it all tomorrow. Don't let it end. I know it's over. But Kim continues.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Until tomorrow, everyone, we're out of time.
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, everybody. And bye.